Hello and welcome to Chats, the television podcast, season 13, part 3, New Chatsterdam. This is the third series in our season on shows that didn't last 13 episodes before getting canceled, which we've been calling 13 Under 13. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by Magellan, like the comic strip.
What is that a reference to? I don't even know if I caught that line.
In episode 4, when they're taking the woman into the ER, someone says, like, her name's Carol May, like the comic strip. And I was like, no one in this room knows who that is.
Like what comic strip?
Mary Worth. You're like, well, it's like a background line where someone goes like, oh, Mary Worth, like the comic strip. And I looked it up, and that's a real comic strip. That's like boomer old lady comics. It's awesome.
That's so funny.
Yeah, a lot of great background work in this show. How are you, bud?
I'm good. I couldn't get past the fact this time watching it that a guy calling himself
watching it?
Yeah, I've got COVID. I'm coming out the other side, but there's still some of that COVID brain fog, some of that COVID creative spark too. You know, people don't talk about the bright side of it and how it unleashes something inside of you that comes out through your mouth in the form of air and phlegm, and also just like, you know, sort of pure creative energy. And that's what you're going to be getting from me tonight. And here's where it brought me this time watching New Amsterdam, which is I couldn't get past the fact that a guy calling himself John Amsterdam is just a guy saying, hey, I'm Frankie Los Angeles. Nice to meet you.
Oh my God, I'd watch it.
It's like, bro, this is so stupid.
I'm Bobby Boston.
Yeah.
But anyway. Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
It's so hard to say. Mississippi. Mississippi. This is easy.
I feel like we're missing out on a rapper named Minneapolis. What's your man's address? Because she's always fucking your man. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I have this is a connecting thread that might be part of Missy Minneapolis's first rap record. I need you to find the thing that connects.
Missy Minneapolis.
What connects these two phrases?
Okay.
My favorite piece of hanging jewelry that smokes weed. That's phrase 1. And my favorite Friends character. Can you combine those two into a cohesive thing?
Hanging jewelry that smokes weed?
Yes.
So hanging jewelry, that'd be a necklace.
Hanging, like
hanging,
you know,
like
hanging.
An earring?
No.
Hanging.
Not all
jewelry
is worn. Not all jewelry is worn.
Not all jewelry is worn.
Uh-huh.
This is like a riddle.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about a chandelier?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yes.
That's not jewelry.
What would you call that? Furniture?
I wouldn't call it jewelry. It's for the house.
What is a chandelier?
Oh, chandelier and chandler.
Okay, what's the second word?
Well, smoking weed. What's this? You're toking? Is this supposed to be a third word that also sounds like these other two words?
No.
Chiefing?
Do you want the answer?
Sure.
Chandelier bong. Chandler Bing.
Oh, bong. Okay, but then yeah.
Folks, this is what happens when I write jokes in the shower and they're so funny to only me, and then I'm like, let me bring this on the podcast. It'll kill, and it simply.
I've been watching a lot of Friends.
Yeah, I was like, the jokes will appeal to you.
No, I appreciate it. I've been having like sort of feverish shivers that have been steadied by Chandler Bing. So
Chandelier bong.
I appreciate the joke for the audience of one there.
Chandelier bong. John, tonight we have a special guest. Who is clearly itchy.
I don't know if this podcast can take another person bringing this sort of energy.
I don't know.
This doesn't even feel like a show right now.
Folks, I'm American. I'm a Jew. His family's still living in the Middle Ages. It's Justin from the Super Smash Echoes podcast.
I was just thinking about Mary Worth last week because I was reading our hobby drama post about the ChatzKidz.
Justin, I love you. What?
The ChatzKidz was one of the first comic strips ever. This is quoting user I had 360k karma, damn it. It started in 1897, and the guy who made it got fired by the newspaper because he took a vacation. but he still owned, and he
Oh.
didn't have the copyright to the comic strip, but he had the copyright to the characters independent of the comic strip. So he started a different comic strip starring the same characters in a competing newspaper.
Huh.
Interesting.
We respect that.
It's been running longer than Maryworth, but only
Gotcha.
by a bit.
Oh, back to the comic. Okay.
You wouldn't let me talk before I came on, so I couldn't respond when it was in context.
That's the rule of the podcast, though. Magellan, we talk about New Amsterdam here, and we recruited Justin.
I'm the second person who has heard of New Amsterdam 2008.
Yes, King. I'm so glad.
And you're also the second person on this recording with COVID. Just so everybody's aware of so everybody's aware of what's happening tonight.
Now you have nothing to say. Come on, give me a good gag.
It was in the middle of a sentence. What are you talking about? I'm reading off my notes. I watch a lot of mystery shows in this around time period, like Monk and Psych and House, and I played visual novels, and I like mysteries. And I saw a lot of ads for the Fox television show New Amsterdam and did not watch it.
Oh.
Were you always curious about it, though?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought about it for a lot of years. 14?
12 years.
12? Why would it be 12? It was 2008.
It's been 12 years.
It's been 12 years.
14 years. 14 years. Wait, right? It's been 14 years since 2008?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
it's been 14 years since 2008
It's been 14 years
14
since 2008.
No, you can't do that. I did that a few seconds ago.
No, you can't do that.
You
You can't do that.
It's my podcast and I need it
fighting. Please stop
It's my
fighting. Can't you
podcast
see
and
New
I need it
Amsterdam is tearing
now.
us all apart?
This week on New Chatsterdam, we watched episodes 3 and 4 of New Amsterdam 2008. Episode 3 is called Soldier's Heart. Episode 4 is called Honor. Soldier's Heart was written by Alan Loeb, Christian Taylor, and Eric Ellis Overmeyer. It was directed by Bobby Roth, and it aired March 10th, 2008. Now, Justin, Us Weekly recently said that you are, quote, built with the encyclopedic knowledge of indie webcomics like a nerdy Gen Z, fused with the hyperfixating capacity of a terminally online millennial. What did you think of Soldier's Heart before we even
That's
get
not
into
a joke.
the whole
That's
vibe
just
of it?
accurate. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, it was in a magazine.
It must be true.
Are
Are you like excited to watch New Amsterdam today?
Yeah. Well, for context, I made Magellan promise to play Persona 4 with me in a few years. So in the meantime, I'm just researching
Bummer.
as much as I can about the year 2008.
Uh-huh. Oh, this was a plug for your podcast. Wait a minute.
We already
Yeah,
mentioned
join
it.
us in 3 years.
I overall I got bad comments, but I
Okay.
thought this was very cool. I thought the episode worked well. And
Okay.
I had fun with some of the stupid things they did.
There we go. That's what we like. Fun is important. Magellan, can you tell me what happened in Soldier's Heart, please?
Sure. A homeless Gulf War veteran confesses to the grisly murder of a controversial psychiatrist, but John Amsterdam, is skeptical. While reviewing the psychiatrist's soon-to-be published book, Amsterdam contemplates the reliability of memories and the reasons people bury them. The murder also brings Amsterdam closer to finding the one who he believes will unlock his heart and make him mortal. Though he's certain the sparks he feels are real, he encounters the unexpected.
So both of these episodes have issues with their A-plot's themes, right? And so that's the connecting thread, and also the characters are the connecting thread. But Soldier's Heart concerns PTSD, repressed memory, fictional memory, and sort of issues with the psychiatric industry and how it treats veterans and those who are like sufferers of PTSD. John, did you find that this episode overall worked for you, or were those like issues here and there too much to bear?
That's I think an interesting place to start with this episode. I generally speaking, I like this idea that the show's trying to pursue of, okay, you have a guy who's been alive for hundreds of years, so he's had various collections of experiences that we can sort of just basically make up as we please in order to explore a theme across time periods and get a sense of what would it be like to be essentially immortal. And it makes sense to do an episode that's about we're trying to repress traumatic memories and dealing with PTSD, him having served in the military. We saw in a previous episode him enlisting for the military, so we know that it's happened. Okay, makes sense. We'll do an episode where there's a guy in the present day who has PTSD, and John Amsterdam in the past will be experiencing the same thing. Cool. That all makes sense to me. I think for me, there was kind of a sticking point that was maybe a me thing, and then a sticking point that I think was a more fundamental issue with the episode. The thing that's a me thing is just like, I have a hard time watching any sort of fiction that's about people who are currently in or were in military service without like wondering the extent to which that fiction normalizes America's military existing. And so it's hard for me to watch like a PTSD story like this that doesn't really, it seems more critical of like the VA than the Army, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that just like the politics of that are so weird to me. And it seems like it's really trying to take to task like, oh, psychiatrists and, their wacky methods and they can't be trusted or whatever. It's like, well, why are you interested in that? So that bugged me. And then I think the thing that I wanted it to just be a little clearer on is it starts to conflate the theme of like PTSD with this theme of sort of like implanted memory, or like a memory that's not real, but you're convinced that you have, or a memory that you can't be sure is real. And that to me is actually a way more interesting theme that's kind of different from PTSD and doesn't really fit in the same episode. Because imagine a story about a guy who's immortal, who has these memories, and he's like, I actually don't know if these are real or not. Like in
Well, you just
I think
took away
episode
one of the
2.
most interesting notes I have, so
I took it away.
that was one of my I hope that I want the show to go there. I mean, there's like 4 episodes left, but if you were alive for 400 years, like by that point, you've got to remember some stuff that isn't like true anymore.
Right.
It would be so cool if John realizes that some of the things he thinks so true about himself are like not true anymore.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Because I think it was in episode 2, maybe, his partner asked him something about his parents. Like, oh, were your parents like this or something? And he pauses and he's like, I honestly can't remember. And I love that. Because it's like, of course you can't remember. Your parents are people you met like 400 years ago. And they're not, present in your life in any way anymore. So I was much more curious about that idea of like untrustworthy or implanted memories, as opposed to what I think is a much more rote and like not well taken care of theme of like PTSD and military service and
what it does to people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the least successful scene about military service is just the first one, where the veteran is like harassing this guy he thinks is Arab, I think, and is just like saying a bunch of racist and Islamophobic things at him, and it felt very a TV show that came a few years after Crash won Best Picture, so they tried to make their character nuanced by making them explicitly racist in different ways that they don't really return to later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really weird casting decision. The main person we're talking about here is played by Orlando Jones, who's like one of the founding members of Mad TV and was like a well-known comedic actor in the 90s and 2000s.
Right.
And to give him the role of like, okay, you need to play a nuanced portrayal of somebody like a veteran, like a black veteran with PTSD, that's a lot of baggage to give somebody who's mainly worked in like really broad sketch comedy. And it mostly doesn't work, unfortunately, because it feels really, really hammy and like not like it's a joke. But I mean, they sometimes treat it like a joke. The first scene of the episode is John Amsterdam is watching a bunch of people on the phone, talking on the phone, and he says something along the lines of like, back in my day when people talk to themselves, we called them crazy, and now it's normal to talk to yourself because you're on the phone. Cut to this guy talking to himself because he has PTSD and then harassing somebody. And it's like, that's it's like trying to handle something a sensitive topic with gorilla hands and being like, I got this, here I go, and you just immediately smash it in your hands the second you look at it. That's what this episode felt like to me, was really trying like shooting for something interesting and like you guys were saying, like that they could bring back to John in a cool way. But it just doesn't, you know? It's just more about like the ills of like veteran therapy. And in my opinion, and we can argue this later, maybe even some like anti-therapy rhetoric, which kind of like weirded me out.
Yeah. And the thing that I also just kind of thought of right now is we're connecting back. The past story is about John Amsterdam. Sorry, I don't know why I think that's funny. John Amsterdam. In his time as a Civil War nurse, and he has to amputate a guy's leg, and that is framed as like a PTSD thing, but the guy whose leg is amputated commits suicide because he feels he can't return to his life without that leg. And it seems like that's not really a PTSD story, like fully. It's sort of about like battle wounds and about, you know, having
what
ability.
War takes from you. And also it's a disability thing too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's all of that. But it's not a PTSD thing.
So it's just kind of like throwing a lot of things into one bucket. It's not super clear what it's trying to talk about, I think.
I think this show does the structure of the show where every episode has a story from John's past intercut with the procedural mystery. One thing that works really well, and I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that sounds like not ironic because I'm actually sincere about this, is it lets John have had development as a person and be kind of a cool, perfect cop guy who mostly doesn't make mistakes.
Right. In the past, he's learning from things and he's flawed and all that. In the present, he's become aloof because he's lived so long.
He does make a couple mistakes in these two episodes, but
yes,
I think the message he tried to he was supposed to have learned from the story in the past didn't work very well. He his friend, who they name in the middle of the episode as Walt, tells him that
we'll get there.
John seems to think that he should have stayed by his patient's side and talked to him a little bit more, and that would have saved his life. And maybe, but it probably wouldn't. That's not enough to just talking to someone once isn't gonna change whether they die by suicide. Probably, or
right
once and then later on. It seems like John. He took the wrong lesson. He blamed himself, and the lesson he took was that he should have blamed himself, and not that he did most of what he could.
And that it's a systemic issue, and you need to allow yourself to accept that you're not perfect, basically.
Yeah,
I guess the
lesson
also the lesson he took was that he should in the present try to help. I forget the character's name, the veteran. And he decided to help him, Wilcox, after coercing a confession out of him. But he did at least grow from his experience in the past, or he did the correct thing in this context, at least part of this episode.
Yeah, the precise logical connections between the past moments and the present are not always. I'm not always with them. The next episode included. But I agree with what you're saying, Justin, about what you're able to do when you have the past story and the present story is you can tell a past story where you basically tell the audience hey, this story is going to end badly. It's going to end as badly as we want it to. And it's insulated in the past. So you won't feel as bad as an audience member to the extent that you're oh God, this is terrible. I don't know if I want to watch this show, because it's no, this happened in Civil War times. Don't worry about it. but we can still tell this moment of like really deep abject failure for John Amsterdam. And then in the present kind of give you the sort of like, hey, we did it. Yeah. Happy ending. Nice work, everybody. And both can kind of exist in the same episode, which I think is rich ground for a procedural like this. And like, I like what you said, Justin, that it allows you to sort of justify the kind of like super competent, thinks like Sherlock Holmes, looks like sexy Nikolai Coster-Waldau guy, by having all this like sort of, a priori character development.
Ooh.
I don't even know if I used that correctly.
Probably not.
I'm looking it up.
But we get into some interesting stuff. So again, the past is taking place in 1862 at the Battle of Antietam.
I definitely didn't use that correctly.
It's all good.
You know what I meant. Prior character development.
Yeah. And then the present is dealing with Wilcox and the murder of his psychiatrist and Dr. Prender, who is mysteriously killed around the time that he goes to her for a session. He's immediately the suspect because, again, just like 2007's Drive, we're not even going to address race. We're just going to simply play this episode colorblind and be like, no, it's because he was there and because he's a veteran and because he talks to himself that we don't trust him and he has the capacity for violence. It has to be him. This is so easy. And the episode delves into something that I wish they did last week, honestly, which is like, hey, sometimes when Amsterdam like interrogates people, he makes problems. And in this case, he is like ostensibly leading Wilcox into saying that he killed Prender, Dr. Prender, which he did not. But he realizes when watching the footage back that like, oh, you can like lead a witness to the point where they say it. Like how they did the whole thing with the fake letter before, and like he can show her the fake letter in episode 2. So there's a lot of like moral grayness with that I actually found pretty interesting. And like, Amsterdam trying to like talk to all the different veterans and learning about what did Prender like teach them and all of that. And honestly, like the plot of the episode works for me all the way up until we realize the background for what's going on with Prender. And this is where I start to have problems with this one. So I'm interested in talking about this. Prender has, we learned from her husband. He's like, oh, her next person that she works with was Dr. Sarah, and that they go to visit Dr. Sarah, and you have this cute scene where Amsterdam sees her, and they lock eyes, and they have a meet cute, and it's whatever. And so that goes on into part 4's plot line. That's like our main story plot. But she had a lawsuit at some point because she was treating a young woman. And at first, what we understand is that she helped a woman understand that her father was being abusive to her. And the father ended up like suing the therapist, and it was a whole case. And this is what Amsterdam and Marquez dig up. But what we learn later is that actually the daughter was not actually abused, but the therapist is using a like experimental method that like basically the same thing that he compares it to what he does to Wilcox, which is that he gets her to say, or in this case, Prender gets the young girl to say, oh, yes, I was abused, which causes this whole rigmarole. This ties back into the Prender's like friendship with this other guy who she's going to write a book about and like, expose him. And so he actually, spoiler alert for the episode, ends up killing that. He's the one who kills Prender because he doesn't want this to get out. And it just feels to me like they're saying like therapists can get you to say stuff that's not true. How do we feel about the way this all runs out?
Yeah, I was really not a fan of it because, I don't know. It just like textually in the episode, was that the case that she got the girl in that one situation to remember something that didn't happen? Does the episode basically say like, yeah, the dad didn't do anything to her?
Justin, are you more familiar? Are you clearer on this?
Because we talked to that woman, too, later, right?
I think the idea
she says like, oh, she helped me a lot.
She used recovered memory techniques where the idea was that the patients come to understand that they have a repressed memory and that is like something that apparently supposedly happened to them that they forgot about, and in talking to the therapist, they come to remember it again. And in the
Okay.
context of this episode, the understanding is that the techniques were mistaken, and that it was actually causing people to imagine those things and come to believe that they were real
Oh.
memories.
So,
I-
okay, so in theory, the method helps you find repressed memories, but in
Yeah.
this case, it seems like they did it poorly, and it actually, like, invented a memory, ostensibly.
Yeah.
That's fucked, dude! That's not cool! Are you kidding?
I don't know. I'm
What's
not.
not cool? That being a thing, you're saying, or what?
No, that like... It makes it seem like the villain of this episode implanted is a therapist who put... not the villain. One of the people who did bad in this episode is the therapist who put memories into a person and led to a family being torn apart.
Mhm.
And it feels like this screen against, like, digging into your trauma, because we worry that, like, the therapist is going to somehow, like, pull something out that isn't true and make you think something that's not true.
So I'm doing. I think here's what I think it is there could be two ways that this could go wrong, right? And it's a matter of, like, one, is this a thing that the episode is talking about that's real and it's representing accurately or inaccurately? And then two, the sort of question of, like, how is it focusing on the thing, or what is it choosing to not look at by looking at this? And this stuff, I'm, like, doing cursory search. I'm on Wikipedia, not saying that's the most reliable place, but recovered memory therapy is a real thing. It's been a real controversy. It's been discredited for the reasons that the episode talks about. So it seems there were cases in the late 90s of this exact thing that the guy is describing happened to his family happening to people. So it seems like this is a kind of ripped from the headlines plot. So, like, they're not necessarily wrongfully representing this concept from what I can understand. But like you're saying, Alan, the question is, like, okay, why is this the thing you're choosing to dramatize? If you want to tell a story about PTSD, why did that become a story about bad actors in the psychiatric community who want to forward recovered memory therapy? Because you could focus on a character like Prender, who's like, oh, this has been discredited. Oh, I just got into this court battle. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think the issue here is the invention of the guy who was her partner, who was like, no, I'm going to continue to do this and murder for it. And that's where it's like,
And, like, he's the villain.
Right.
Both of these episodes have issues where the last 5 minutes introduce a guy who's like, it's actually me. Ha ha. Oh, I'm arrested.
Yeah.
And it feels like it skirts around actually talking about the issue a little bit. But this is all to say, like, the way that this makes me feel uncomfortable doesn't inherently make the episode bad. It's just really fascinating that a, like, police procedural about an immortal man is, like, dealing with this kind of stuff. I think that's like
the show is
pretty bold, actually.
It's making a lot of swings at controversial topics, and I think sometimes, for me, I think it really succeeded in this episode on this topic. Partly because I came into this episode kind of thinking about this stuff sometimes, and like, for context, I listened to a lot of, like, Oh No, Ross and Carrie, this podcast about various, like, these journalists who go and sign up for, like, new religious groups and pseudoscience groups and things, and a lot of the scary stuff they encounter is stuff that's based on people who've talked to someone and come to believe that a horrible thing happened to them with, like, aliens or with like, satanic abuse that probably didn't actually happen, but that imagination is so powerful, and the process of thinking of a memory is kind of the same process of imagination, and it's really hard to remember if something actually happened or if you just pictured it. Like I don't have, so for context, I don't have a lot of backstory in like knowing about psychology. I don't know how much of this is real, and I can't comment on this, but I have heard stories about the bad situation they're describing of you come, like, you're trying to get help and the therapist is trying to help you, but you come to believe something horrible happened to you that didn't, and it makes everyone's life worse. It's like it's a scary thing that I think about sometimes, and I think we can get back to what it's saying about like therapy in general, because and like if it's focusing on that or in the wrong way, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it was very successful in this case because it explicitly compared that process, which maybe it was like pulling from some recent headlines or something. I don't have the context of what was going on in 2008, but it explicitly compared that to false confession and falsely getting this person to have a memory of committing the murder. And
Yeah.
I think like comparing how easy it is in this one context for your imagination to feel like reality, and it can have really bad consequences for your family life if you come to believe something that's false, to this other context of how in the justice system there's various ways in which it's really easy for imagination to match up with, to like overtake reality. Like it's really easy for an eyewitness, if you accidentally lead them and show them a photo of who you think the guilty person is, they can come to actually have that memory of having seen that person, even if they never actually saw that person. Right. I think that that's something I really like, that this show is talking about that when it's talking about the justice system, especially because it's a show that's talking about like all about this like police officer who can't make any mistakes and is like a perfect person for being immortal. I like that they're talking about a way where he makes a mistake.
For sure. My grunt earlier, by the way, was just that, like, yeah, I was thinking about this a lot. And I honestly, if I can just, like, push on that a teensy bit, I wish the show put, like, connected what the police are doing and how it's coercive to what this psychologist is doing. And it like I said, you were saying, like, it does kind of do that, but also the, like, key that helps them get the evidence they need at the end is that Amsterdam gives the guy a piece of paper, and then he's like, oops, wrong paper, and like steals his fingerprints, which like is not mentally coercive, but is a like way to coerce evidence out of a suspect that's like questionably legal, that the show doesn't care about, because it gets us to like, got him, we already knew it was him, we just needed to prove it, got him, tricked him. And like, I don't like watching Amsterdam continue to do this thing where he like makes evidence or pulls evidence out of people like that. It's just part of this like 2008 trend, especially of police procedurals, of like men who get the job done no matter what the need is, or no matter what the means are, rather. It makes him feel really like off-putting in some ways. But I also don't think I have to like John Amsterdam all the time. Like he's a guy who gets things done. He's one of those types of dudes, you know?
That sort of ties into an observation I have of the show on like an entertainment level. So if we want to move on to that, I can do that in a second. If unless you have more to say on this.
No, I think again the psychology stuff and like Amsterdam's relationship to it is touched upon in the episode. I think they could do a teensy bit more with it, but otherwise it seems like they're really reaching here for something like a bigger point. And I think that's the extent of what we have to say about like the serious implications of this plotline. But you can talk about what the like episode itself as a craft.
So here is what I think is not working about New Amsterdam as a show, and might be why it like lost a lot of people's interest. It's not really a mystery show, at least in this in the sense of like aggregate Christie-ish storytelling of like
you can't really look at this and solve it per se, right?
They kind of mention things that end up being relevant later, but it's not like they don't give you clues early on that solve it. And I think all 4 of these episodes, they only get the solution in the end by getting some evidence in the last few minutes. and it's sort of like something from different contexts earlier because they mentioned a manuscript earlier, and then they figure out that it's relevant later. But yeah, it's not like it doesn't follow like the rules of a mystery box where you should be able to solve it from like halfway through given the clues you have. And
Definitely not.
that's something that could have been more entertaining and hooked about it.
What procedurals work like that?
That's what I was gonna say.
Doesn't yeah.
I realized that the mysteries that I watch, even the ones that are like weekly episodes, actually aren't really procedural like Law and Order. They're not really about like how does this fiction how does according to fiction the police do investigation. So so I realized that what I wanted out of it was different than what the genre actually was. Probably.
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're making me think about is how police procedural Law and Order type shows have the trappings or look like it's an investigation that you can solve, but actually sort of benefit from keeping the solution or the answer obscured to like surprise or shock people, right? Yeah. And that's like the entertainment value is like, oh my God, can you believe that it was her old partner? What the fuck? But you have to like do that well, or you have to do the thing that you're talking about well, which is like making it a little mystery that people can solve. Yeah.
I was looking forward to either this or the next episode just having a totally different structure if they're not going to do a mystery. Like, at first I was like, is this going to be just a hospital drama episode randomly and not like a police murder mystery? That could have been a cool thing to happen.
Yeah, because there's an introduced plot, like we said here, of like Amsterdam is now going out with Sarah, and like she's doing tests on him because she recognizes that he's the guy who lived and like left her morgue and all that stuff, and so she's fascinated by him and clearly very attracted to him. And speaking of like, we're not going to deal with the ethical implications of this, immediately falls in love with her patient, like effortlessly. And like, I get it, Nikolai's a sexy guy, whatever, but like, you're a doctor. You're a doctor. She immediately is like,
doing medical tests on him, and it's like a sexy ASMR roleplay.
Yeah, when I get medical tests, it's like, can you stick your tongue out and then like
let me
choke
feel
and
your
throw
abs.
up on me? Yeah. Let me feel your let me just run my finger gently through your abs. Like, okay. Speaking of silly things, let's just briefly touch on it. Did anybody who knew about Walt going into this episode? No one besides me?
I did not. I was livid.
I was I have written what in all caps with TTTTT and 4 question marks at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So what? Amsterdam in the past, he's the Battle of Antietam, and his assistant here is named Walt. He's a big bearded guy. He seems super friendly.
He says he's like, here, I have something to help you with your melancholy. Maybe it's a book of poems I've written.
I wrote it. Here it is, and it's fucking Leaves of Grass because that's Walt Whitman, who like. You know, College Allen would have flipped their shit because this is like, he was one of my favorite poets. And I still love my copy of Leaves of Grass, whatever. I did know about this though, because when we were looking at summaries, I saw the word Walt Whitman float across my screen. And I was like, when does Walt Whitman get in here? And as soon as I heard Walt, I was like, there it is. That's really goofy, but in a way that I'm like, this is what there's a couple things in episodes 3 and 4 where I'm like, this is what I want New Amsterdam to be. And I kind of want him to be like Forrest Gumping through history, you know? And it makes sense. He's like an immortal white guy. It actually makes more sense than it does for Forrest Gump, who's not immortal, to just like, he just has preternatural luck. At least Amsterdam can just be like, yeah, I was everywhere because I can fit in anywhere.
Sort of, but like in the next episode, in the next episode, he's like, yeah, E. Cummings, man. Like, it's just when he knows people.
He knows everyone, though.
I'm torn on it because it's like amusing, but then it's almost a little too silly. Like that was my big issue with the way that they did this moment is it just was, you know, this guy who is his buddy who was helping him be a little more empathetic. And then he's like, and by the way, kids, I was Walt Whitman the whole time. And you're like, well, now I'm not taking any of this seriously because that was a cartoon show that just happened in front of me.
Yeah.
And you could have just said at the beginning, like, I remember back when I was a Civil War nurse with my friend Walt Whitman, and that would have been fine. It didn't need to be a twist. It could have been part of the premise.
It was really funny. It was really funny, though.
Well, that's the problem. It's not supposed to be funny.
It's not played for comedy.
They want it to be touching and like,
yeah,
oh, wow.
they're really trying to talk about real issues, and that is not what I want. I mentioned that I liked how it ended up working this episode, but I want this show to be so stupid.
I kind of do too. I just wish it was more that and less like let's talk about the issues with like military therapy.
I wish it would go in one direction or the other.
One
I
direction
guess
or the
what I'm
other.
saying.
I wish that it got canceled for like being stupid and not canceled for me canceling the next episode.
Oh,
problematic.
Right.
We'll get there in a moment. That's a good point, though. What if we blend them together like a big stew, and it's a false memory, and he thinks it was Walt Whitman the whole time.
Nice.
Oh, that'd
okay,
be
that's
cool.
actually good. That's pretty good.
He's like, I like hung out with Walt Whitman, and they're like some like investigator. B plot. Marquez is looking into New Amsterdam. I found it. We finally have something for Marquez to do besides be sassy and also secretly be the one who Amsterdam's gonna fall in love with. Oops.
What?
She's investigating him, and she looks into it, and she's like, Walt Whitman wasn't there at the Battle of Antietam. What? And then she's like, oh, it ends with her being like, oh, it's a repressed memory. Oh, that's so good. Why isn't this show that?
Okay,
I want someone to investigate him.
I have my own fanfiction idea. We can wait till like the end of this episode for it.
Excellent.
I want to hear it.
Oh, no, no. We're gonna have a better point.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just think that stuff would be a little bit more interesting than like, and it was Walt Whitman. What a fun coincidence, huh? That's great.
Yeah, like if you're going to do that, do something with it.
But they don't really.
But
Show's extremely canceled. I find it hard to invest, but I do sometimes think about like, oh, what if the show had gone on? Like, wouldn't it have been cool to do this? They have to have invented a character who investigates John in the present. And they're like, it doesn't add up. He's been shot and murdered, and we have like death records from all the different states. God,
I
that's
guess
so
that's
interesting.
kind of what Dr. Delane is. Maybe Dr. Delane's going to start doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe she's too in
in a
love with him
direct
to
way.
keep doing that though. To actually like try.
Well,
to
yeah, I
drag
think what's
this
going to happen
down.
with that one, and I haven't watched this whole show, so I don't know what happens, but I think she like realizes that. Then he in the next episode goes, oh, she's not the one. And then once they're separated, she goes on this like, obsessive quest to figure out what happened.
I don't think this show thinks the audience is smart enough to it be like episode 5 reveal that she's not his real. I think that's like a mid-season or like end of first season reveal.
You don't think the end of this episode at the end of episode 4, when they literally have sex, that he's going to be like, oh, whoops, it hasn't happened yet.
I
Because
guess, when
they fall in love and they're like
yeah
into the toilet.
Maybe, maybe they get
I guess
married
the thing
in
is,
episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
how would he? Yeah, I guess it gets into the mechanics of like what does it
Episode
mean to
5 is
find
he has a
the
conflict
one?
with her current husband. Episode 6
Yep,
they get a
that's gonna
divorce.
happen.
Episode 7 they get together officially somehow. And at the end of episode 7 he realizes they're not in love. Or they're not the soulmates.
Yeah.
Also, how does he know? Like, at what
Right.
point does he go like,
I feel
okay,
so mortal now. Yeah.
if you feel no, that would be he dies. But how does he know it doesn't work? Like, they have to be married for 5 years before he goes, oh, I guess you're not the one. Whoops.
They have
Like,
I guess I
the
haven't aged
Nave
at all.
people like actually be a character in the show and explain to him.
oh,
Oh yeah, somebody's descendant or something.
Pretty good thing or less bad thing is that they've actually named the tribe of people that he talked
The
to.
tribe.
They're still not characters, but I appreciate that they actually named which group of people it was in this episode.
Mm.
I'm getting tired of every previously on being like, previously on New Amsterdam, you will never die.
Hey, I'm
Until you
not.
find
I'm
your-
not because it's reliving my experience of experiencing New Amsterdam, where I just watched the trailers where they showed those scenes over and over. So
You will not grow old. Yeah, it's just like a repetitive, easy line to put in a clip, though. I know we kind of blew by things, but I'm realizing I don't have too many other notes on this episode. I think the A plot is fraught but interesting, and the B plot is a little hammy. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much episode 3.
Yeah.
Justin, any stray thoughts?
I have several things highlighted on my Google Doc that are all stray thoughts. I love.
Give me your top 3.
I love that she got killed with her own award. That's very like Phoenix Wright dramatic. It's fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
Catch.
like that they didn't do the Vampire Diaries thing according to Jen Nicholson's The Vampire Diaries video, where the characters in the past fought for the Confederacy, and it was a big yikes. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Oi.
I'm still trying to figure out how to keep my hair looking okay when it's windy outside in the city, and I guess the answer is have a stylist fix it in between shots. I like that John Anschan uses woodworking to solve the murder. That he knows how desks were made in the Civil War because he was a woodworker in the past, and that's how he knows where the secret compartment is.
Oh. I just thought he was obsessed with desks. That's funny.
That's my story things for this episode. Got a few more
Excellent
observations in general.
Cool. Yeah, let's bring those into part 2 then. So folks, that all being said, wait, Magellan, we have an email to read.
Oh, sure.
Can I listen to the email?
Yeah.
Hi, it's me, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, you're allowed to. Yes. This email comes to us from friend of the podcast, Six Detmar from Scanline Media.
Okay. Hi, Six.
It's this is a fun one. Hello, chatbots. Six here with some questions for you. I'm really enjoying your canceled show season. Thank you for covering shows I'm too lazy to watch. Unless you want me to guest, in which case I'll catch up. On the Air and Drive have given me a lot to think about.
We do. I think that would be great to have Six on for some New Amsterdam episodes.
Yeah. And I wanted to run some stuff by you. Number 1, what are your thoughts on auteur theory in film? Because I'm a hopeless nerd, I think of examples like Hideo Kojima, and my mind makes the comparison of Metal Gear to Death Stranding as being like Twin Peaks to On the Air. Interesting. As a show, On the Air is basically a protest against executive meddling. But do you think it's outside editors that were able to make Frost and Lynch's vision work in Twin Peaks? For example, despite Lynch's tantrum over it, I would argue that it really was time to reveal the killer in season 2, and the mistake was catching him so quickly. So let's just briefly tackle that, because the other questions also go into some other things. Auteur theory in film. I mean, I'm always fascinated by shows that like attempt to be about the making a show. You know, we talked about Studio 60. We talk about like even The Newsroom in a way is about like making a show and working on a team with people. I generally like it more when the metaphor is subtle. On the Air is literally about making a TV show, and it's like a little bit too like obvious there.
Mhm.
But like in a way, like shows like Power Rangers and stuff are like about working on a team and like learning how to make a team work despite differences in various things like culture and class and all that stuff. You know, like doctor shows are also about like navigating different personalities. Like shows are not just about what they're about something else. And I think I personally like that and find it a bit more interesting when auteurs are like complaining about their system in a different medium or genre entirely. What about you, Megan?
So it sounds like the spirit of Six's question is just, do we agree with auteur theory? Like thinking about work in terms of who made it and their goals and that kind of thing. I mean, for me, it's like, I think it's fun to think about film, especially in that way, because it's like more cinematic, honestly, of a way to imagine filmmaking. But obviously film or television is made by like a village of auteurs who all have their own sort of contributions. And I think I get really interested when I watch YouTube videos that talk about like the cinematographer of a certain film and look at how this movie looks like this other movie because of this, or the editor, or the way that the costumes look. And I think it's a lens, the way that any sort of lens is a lens. Okay, do you want to look at this film or this TV show from the perspective of like what was going on in society when it came out? Or do you want to look at it through a lens of a particular identity group that's represented or not represented or misrepresented? So I don't know. I think the problems with auteur theory come when people treat it as like an answer or like the key to a puzzle or something, as opposed to just like a lens or a tool that we can use to talk about something that has its uses and applications and also its limitations. And as long as we're mindful of those things, I think we can have interesting critical conversations where we arrive at a variety of conclusions. That's my thought on it.
I'm gonna.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say some stuff that I know is less smart, and I think it's going to be interesting because I have less perspective on it. I'm thinking back to like high school because that's when I've done some of the most of analysis work, just because like I had English classes where I was required to like analyze like books, and
Yeah.
they like explicitly teach you here is how you should try to structure like the thesis statement of your essay. Don't just say like this is happening. Say like the author did this because, and they really try to make you. Or when I in those classes, I was like explicitly told my teachers explicitly told me like name like the author's last name and say that she's or like doing this because of this. And I don't think we really examined that deeply. I don't think we've really thought about who the author, like actually think about it too much in the context of the author's life. I think when I was getting that message, I was still just trying to think about what's in the book, but framing it in terms of what a person is trying to do, even if I don't know who that person is and what that person's like. So maybe some of the reason people talk about auteurs is just because. Wow, I'm about to get into something that I don't. Okay, I'm going to say something that I don't believe, and then shock that maybe like the language, the way that language lets you think about how to analyze it. Like maybe because it's way easier to say this person who I see in the credits and is writer or is director, they probably did this, or they are someone who makes choices. So this person made the choice to structure the film this way, and that's why this person made this art successful in this way. And maybe it's just because it's easier to say Kojima did this rather than this emerged from the text. Also, that's not how linguistics actually. I don't believe that linguistics actually works that way. I don't think like the structure of your senses really changes too much about what you're able to think. But maybe it's not like explicitly because language itself it makes it, or like English at least makes it easier to ascribe a work or choices to a person rather than just having come up from language. Maybe it's just because of the way thinking about like we're brains are adapted to thinking about motion or thinking about like action and reaction and consequence. And in that maybe it's just like those kind somewhere in there between the way your brains are structured and being explicitly taught to frame things in terms of talking to people. Maybe that's why people talk about auteurs.
Well, and something that I really appreciate that, and I agree with you there that it's like easy. Maybe it does come from a sort of prior moment in our lives where we weren't really conceiving of like author as an actor or like a person who is making a set of decisions within a context, but it's just like, okay, it's a name on the front of the book. So-and-so said this. And I don't know, they did it because it sounded good. That's why for me, I'm super interested whenever I get a chance to learn about process and like the ways in which people create things. Because I think there are ways in which some creators over the course of history, have chosen to either intentionally obscure process or are cool with their process being obscured because it creates a kind of mythic image of the auteur as a genius and things just spring forth from them or whatever. When in reality, creative work is the product of process. And I think the more that we learn about process and how it works and all the people involved in those things, the more we can have conversations about the creation of media framed around choices and compromises and attempts and experiments and those sorts of things, as opposed to like the kind of divine inspired idea that sprang forth from a blank page in a brilliant mind and is now in front of us or whatever.
Yeah, I think we could speak way more about this, but in general, my opinion is also like you're saying, it's tough to talk about a television show, especially as like the work of a collective group of people and a network and, you know, investors and like all these different stakeholders in it. But that's what it is. And like, why does Twin Peaks work? Well, probably a large part of that is like navigating the personalities of Lynch and Frost with the editing technique of Sabrina Sutherland. We don't talk about editors enough. We don't talk about like how lighting and like makeup and all that and costuming like invest us in the world and create that spooky sense of dread sometimes in Twin Peaks that we love so much. So it's you know, it's really tough. And Auteur Theory, I think, believes in an idea that doesn't work with television and film because that's just not how they are made.
Yeah.
Questions 2 and 3 are really low balls, so we can get through these quickly. Question 2, I found it really interesting to contrast how boring Drive sounded to you two's enjoyment and interest in it. Do you think that the show has intangibles that are hard to convey in audio but really give it a bump? Does it have a great vibe, some striking cinematography, or great action? What is it that hooked you? Easy. It's 2007 as hell. We are obsessed with the feeling of something feeling. It feels aughts. And that's cool. It reminds me of being 13 and watching the Fox Network, and it reminds me of times that long past.
The theme song of Drive is music that people would describe as bad music, and I really want to find it and listen to it. I have a lot of fun listening to that song.
Yeah, Gavin Rossdale's pretty good, actually. And I think that there's value in like going back to that era of television and being like, well, is there something good in here? Because it's really easy to be like, it's bad because she holds the phone up to the baby. But also like, someone thought that was a good idea, and that like made it to tape, you know, that made it to air. And it's just it's a fascinating series of decisions. I think is what makes Drive so interesting to us.
Yeah, I think it's that. I was in 7th, 8th grade in 2007, and so I was like starting to gain awareness of the world around me, but not fully criticality of it. And so to revisit things from that period of time with a more developed awareness and criticality is like just an inherently fun experience to look at things and be like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why are people dressed like this? Why are we all talking about Iraq and Hurricane Katrina in this way? I like remember these things, but I didn't have the frameworks to interpret them that I do now. So that's interesting. I think it's just one of those shows that like, there are just some TV shows that are like competently structured and composed television that are meant to entertain you while you're sitting in front of them and watching them. And you can't necessarily recount like, oh my God, I saw this episode of TV last night. Oh, it was wild. This happened, this happened, this happened. Like, I don't ever walk out of a Law and Order episode saying, oh my God, that episode of Law and Order. But I always like enjoy the experience of sitting and being entertained for an hour. And I think Drive comes from that sort of period of television where it's just like, yeah, okay, that held my attention for an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's got the goofiness of Nathan Fillion's really trying to be a serious guy, and isn't that fun? And you know, it's kind of a so bad it's good twinge that is enjoyable too.
Having also just watched Drive, I think something that's hard to convey about it is just how many scenes there are, and they're all so short that it just keeps your attention because it's something else
That's true.
is already happening by the time you process what just happened.
That's a good point. I mean, it basically is edited and written like a reality TV show. I'm standing on that interpretation.
It's written like the reality TV show The Amazing Race. It's not edited as well because in that show they make it very clear who's like winning and where their goals are and what the objective is.
Yeah, that's true.
I kind of want to watch
Drive with
a season of The Amazing Race now.
That sounds fun.
That'd be fun.
I was actually just mentioning that a couple months ago before I had ever heard of Drive 2007.
Well, there you go. It all ties back together. And 6's final question, super easy here.
How far will you go?
Let's stop the world.
Did anybody notice that when they say how far would you go, it's on a shot of John Tolley, who's going pretty far in Karina also, and when they say it's on how deep is your love, it's on Rob and I forgot her name,
Ellie.
and Ellie, and it turns out their love isn't as deep as they thought it was.
Oh, whoa.
I can't believe I rolled my eyes in my head. I said, "It's Alex Tully, you fool." Why am I
Did
like?
I not say Alex Tully? Did I say John Tully?
You said John Tully, which is like a pretty good name.
That's
actually. I like
Alex
good-
Amsterdam.
good
John
character.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, I think that's very much conveying how different the main characters of TV shows are.
Yeah,
I mean, John Amsterdam's
Um,
changing his name every few decades. He might have gone by John Tolley at some point.
it's true. Anyways, that's what we have for now. Let's take a nice musical break.
Wait, sorry,
Well-
a piece of Drive trivia from Wikipedia.
Do I get the Wikipedia page?
The show's title sequence had originally been submitted for consideration in the category of Outstanding Visual Effects in a Drama Series for the title sequence. However, Emmy regulations require a series to air at least 6 episodes in order to be eligible, whereas Drive only aired 4 prior to its cancellation.
I thought it just was that it lost.
However,
to Mad
it was
Men.
bad.
No, it was after the sequence was posted for streaming on the internet, it became eligible under the new rules. Okay, yeah, and then it lost
Is
to
that
Mad Men.
why
And then
they
it lost
posted?
to Mad
Like
Is that
we
the
talked
only
about
reason
in
they
the-
paused
in the
those
Drive.
2 episodes? Well, Mad Men
guess.
should have
I
won.
don't
It was
know.
They tried competing against Mad Men. That's like all time.
Come on, but the Drive one? Come on.
Come on.
Yeah, Mad Men's one of the best of all time.
We'll be right back to discuss Honor.
Hey folks, this is Magellan coming in to read an email that we received from friend and supporter of the podcast, Nick of the Brothers at Infinite War. Thank you, Nick, for sending in this email. So, Nick says, possible solution to John's blood/curse. Hey ChatzPod, just wanted to write in my thoughts after the first 4 episodes of New Amsterdam, aka New Denmark. By the way, we received a lot of flack on the Discord last week for conflating Dutch and Danish, and we addressed that flack in the following episode because we're recording a little bit ahead, but just wanted to bring that up. I can't remember if in the first half of this we made the same mistakes or not, but I'm sure Justin probably set us straight if we did. Anyway, Nick goes on to say, firstly, I wanted to talk about John's blood. We see he has super high levels of lead. Without having seen the other episodes, I'm thinking this is just a case of years of leaded paint/gas that John has basically absorbed over time. An odd way to date him based on how long someone would need to live to have lead levels that high. Similarly, I would think other heavy metals would stick around too, like mercury. The issue with that, though, is that even though it won't or can't kill him, it should still cause other side effects. We know he is still affected by heavy drinking, and so I assume poison in general will be painful until his body can get rid of it. But heavy metal poisoning is long-term. This also means that if he was ever made mortal, he would most likely immediately die from all the built-up toxins in his blood. Damn. Yeah, they really make it just like narratively convenient how he's allowed to be hurt. What I liked about, we piloted Forever on the Patreon years ago. And what I liked about Forever and the way that they handled this idea of like, this guy is immortal is he could still die, but then he would be reborn in the Hudson River or whatever it was, or the East River. I can't remember which river, or no, it was just like the nearest body of water, I think. But that to me is like a better solution as opposed to, yeah, he can't die, but he can still be hurt or I don't know, something. It's like a lot fishier, and they just make it more narratively convenient in this show. But that's pretty funny to think about. Just like finding his true love and then immediately, my blood is full of lead and mercury. Nick goes on to say, my thoughts on the gift of immortality. I'm going to headcanon it as a curse. It has come up before online that becoming immortal on a long enough timeline would lead to you being stuck somewhere, unable to escape. John takes a boat and it sinks. Guess where he's going? The depths of the ocean, unable to breathe, but unable to die either. An eternity of suffering. Even if that doesn't happen, there are plenty of other ways he might get stuck. If someone found out he was immortal, they would easily think he practiced dark arts and burn him at the stake. Would he finally die or be a living husk, forever feeling his burned remains? Yeah, that's pretty gruesome to think about. And he scars too, which, yeah, it does make you wonder what would happen if he were, tortured or injured in these more thoroughly scarring ways, like burning. Yeah, they don't make the rules super clear. Then Nick says, and the extra level trolling on their part, maybe we only saw John be like, don't kill the women level good, but he hated gay people. And they knew, the Native American people who cursed him knew that his true love would be a man and he would never be able to find them. And maybe they were on the train platform when his leaded heart started to kill him. Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit last time, but just like how straight, boringly straight this show is. He still killed their husbands and sons, I assume, in that scene. Plenty to hate him for, and would be willing to curse him for that. And of course, this would be why they wouldn't use this on their own people. And maybe that it was the basis of the Fountain of Youth myths in the Americas, because they knew it was in the end an external torture. Yeah, it definitely is something that I would have liked to see explored more if the show were to go on, just like the motivations behind this whole immortality thing. He really seems to take it at face value that the thing that was said to him is truthful and that it was like meant in a benevolent way. It seems like John Amsterdam takes it that way and doesn't question it or doubt it or wonder about it. Maybe there was a period in his life where he did some research or pushed back against it. I don't know, but we're expected to accept that, like, yeah, these people gave him a little blessing, and now he's gonna find Mrs. Right somewhere, sometime. So I don't know. There's definitely a lot to pick apart in the rules of the show, and I think that also means there's a lot that they could have explored if it had gone on, but unfortunately, we don't live in that timeline. We live in this one where TV is stupid and bad, and only bad shows get more than one season. Cool. Well, thanks, Nick, for the email. We really appreciate it. If you want to have your voice heard on the show, we love reading emails from listeners. Please, please, please send us your thoughts over at chatspod@gmail.com, and we will read it on the show. Okay, I'm going to toss it back to our dynamic trio to discuss episode 4 of New Amsterdam. Amsterdam. It's that show where we talk about that show, one of those shows that didn't make it so far into show. It's me, Magellan. I'm still here. Alan, you're still here.
I'm still here.
Justin, you're still here.
I am thinking of like a YouTube video of the sound you just made of like a slow motion like water balloon with chalk in it and no water, and it's popping and it's sort of falling. It fell on a steel cube, tungsten cube on a swivel chair.
And at the end of the video, you see it go in regular motion.
And you're like, wow, that's so fast.
At the end of the video, they slow it. They do it in reverse up to the point, and then you see it play forward in regular motion. That's correct.
Yeah. And everyone goes, oh!
And they play a TikTok song on top of it where it's the theme song to Rocket Power, but sort of slowed down.
Hey, we watched a second episode of New Amsterdam this time around. It was episode 4, which is called Honor. It was written by Alan Loeb, Christian Taylor, and David Manson. It was directed by Ken Girotti, and it aired on March 17th, 2008. Alan, what happened in Honor?
A lot of things, man. A lot of things. This episode comes with a big heaping helping content warning for sexual assault discussions, brief discussions, not explicit, of rape, and also racism, anti-Indian racism. In this episode, John sees similarities between the rape and murder of a nun and several other rapes and a case in the Bronx from the early 1800s. Meanwhile, John continues to pursue Sarah. Is that true? Was there a nun involved? Was she a nun?
The first woman
right.
who was murdered.
Okay. And continues to pursue Sarah, as in, like, there's no pursuing, they're just in a relationship right now.
Yeah, there's some pursuing, and then they become relationshiped.
Got it.
He has been stalking her. He has been using his police powers to get information on this woman and not telling her that
to
he's
learn
doing
where
that.
she lives, which we didn't talk about in the last episode, and stuff like that.
It's okay. It's propaganda.
Oh, one thing I wanted to say to the credit of New Amsterdam as a show before we talk about this episode that is really upsetting, is they're actually filming things in New York City.
Yeah, I can tell.
It's not just like, Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Or something. Like when he is at her apartment in the previous episode, that actually is like the East Village, it looks like. And when they talk about how the guy was at Union Square, that was actually Union Square. So,
or how Little India's in Jackson Heights.
Yeah, so they're like actually going places in New York.
Yeah.
Anyway, this episode is bad, right? Or
Yeah.
What do we think?
What's the temp check?
Temp check.
I got some description of a couple of the like big racist myths that this episode is about.
A couple of the big racist myths. Yeah, what do we got?
So there's the racist myth that the American society in like specific points in the past is the same as like the other society in the present.
Yep.
And like specifically they say that the perception of honor and women in like India currently is the same as America in 18 I didn't watch this episode again, so I 1813.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Another one is the myth that like immigrants to the country aren't like a core part of American society, but instead are still like othered or are a separate part that are just in their own place and only know each other, and it's like you're the same like racist tropes that a show like this would do. If they go to India, they do the same things when they go to Jackson Heights and they play I didn't recognize the music, but they like show a bunch of shots of people looking Indian, wearing like clothing and listening to music that they wouldn't, and that you wouldn't expect because if you weren't an immigrant, and specifically that like immigrants have their own system of law and won't abide by American law because they're so different and don't have the same morals that we do.
So this episode is fascinating as a picture of like a 2008 United States that tries to claim that it's, post-racial and say that like everything's fine. We like have a little India. We have like, they can be like photographers and models and all that stuff, and like there's so much equal opportunity here. But like Justin is saying, there's just so much trope in portraying the Indian characters in this episode that it doesn't ultimately get past like something you'd see of an Indian character in like the 80s. It actually doesn't feel too progressive, I think, overall. Not that it always has to, but just like that's what the story is about. And yeah, just like the last one, it's like if you're gonna do that, then do it. Then try to do it accurately, I guess.
Yeah. Can I add a racist myth to the pile here? This one, people could sort of debate me on this, but the story in the past in 1813 where John Amsterdam is the carriage driver for some wealthy guy in the Bronx, I guess, according to that description, the episode description. And he finds out that this woman who is a servant to this guy who he's in love with, the rich guy rapes her, and he John Amsterdam doesn't really listen to her story, or he dismisses her, sees her as being sullied by that, and comes around eventually and, takes revenge and all this stuff. And it really feels, I think there are some things that plot does well in the thing that we talked about in the first half, where it makes John do, bad things in the past that he learns from and has to grow from. But I think it also is a plot that I would expect would be told through the lens of the institution of slavery.
Bing bong.
And this episode is acting, first of all, as if these white women are enslaved, which is certainly them being employed as servants of this guy could function that way. And I'm not trying to say that's not the case, but the episode is sort of casually letting us pretend that these white women are playing a role in a story that I think we've seen portrayed in different movies and TV shows as being centered in the context of there's a slave owner, there are enslaved women, and there was slavery in New York City in 1813. It existed. Slavery was not outlawed in New York State until 1817, and there was a 10-year period where it's okay, we can sort of gradually emancipate and get to total abolition by 1827 in New York State. I just looked this up. So that felt really weird to me.
Yeah.
To whitewash that story. Not to say that wouldn't have happened to white women who were servants of wealthy men. I'm sure it did, but it's I don't know. It's weird. And if you're just doing that because it's in New York, do you get the sense that
do you get the sense that the average person in the landowner position would have been enslaving people, or?
That I don't have as clear a sense of the history there, but I would imagine it was more common than we imagine it to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like they rewrote the script, and it was originally a slavery story.
Yeah, I wrote something like that in my notes, which is not only in the way that they write the past, but also the dialogue of the past never feels like they're actually trying for any sort of historical accuracy. It's just it feels like we're doing Halloween costumes of look, it's the old times, but we're just talking like us. It's just me and the dudes. I demand satisfaction, and he slaps the guy and does the gun duel, and it's very that part's very period appropriate. But generally, when people are talking and when he's flirting with the girl behind the carriage, I'm just this doesn't feel like the past. You just put a yellow filter on people in outfits, and it feels very artificial. But maybe that's just because it's on a network. I don't know. It has, or maybe it's a budget thing. It's really hard to pinpoint that. But yeah, so they kind of set a thesis point for this episode very early on. Marquez, the hero of this show, who gets absolutely nowhere near even close to enough lines, despite being on the poster and half of the show, she's barely in it. And when she is, she just kind of says exposition. Marquez says, "What?" This is after they see the rape case and the woman's being taken to the hospital. What is it about women that scares men so much that they need to rape and kill to destroy it? Fascinating little underline of we want this to be about the power dynamics between men and women and how that's been fucked up structurally since the beginning. And then John proceeds to use his cop powers to get a girl to fall in love with him. There's a lot. It's a lot in this one.
Yeah. Something about, I'm wondering, maybe part of why they didn't make it about slavery, maybe they thought a guy like Durst wouldn't have accepted a duel if it were about an enslaved woman.
Yeah,
It's a weird. It's
maybe, but I think that's honestly giving them too much credit.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, I've got more notes down here that give him too much credit that I'm gonna get to later.
yeah, like I think you could make we could have a sort of historiographical argument about like which characters, like how most accurately to portray characters in this station in this place at this time. But I'm speaking from like there's clear precedent in popular culture to tell this exact story
Yeah.
about enslaved people, and when you say, hey, it's 1813, these are a bunch of white ladies, you're like making a conscious choice to not tell that story about enslaved people, which doesn't feel historically informed. It feels like you're making a sort of marketability decision or something like that. I don't know. So
given that the show is trying to, I don't think it would have worked well in this episode or in the concept of the story they were telling, but given that this show is trying to make bold choices about like real topic matter, they could, and also that from just the title of the show, they're explicitly about New York City and its history. It would have been interesting to have an episode that touches on how slavery was in New York City longer than we act like it was.
Right. And how the Dutch were involved in it too. That would be interesting.
I found this consistently hard with season 13 because a friend was asking me recently, like, oh, why don't you guys just like stick to season 13's premise and like do 13 under 13 for a while? Which part of it is like it's kind of hard to find shows that are under 13 episodes. Part of it is we like to mix things up. And part of it is sometimes shows are just like there's way too many ideas that are left on the table in a show that's as canceled as New Amsterdam. It's just like a cornucopia of like, oh, can you do something with that, please? Oh, no, we're just gonna do a bog standard police procedural plot. Okay, we're not gonna deal with like culture implication or like what it means to be immortal in New York City and all that. No, okay, all right, fair enough. And then you just run out of material to talk about sometimes. But that's not to say that this episode is devoid of material. Quite the opposite. It is replete, to use more dictionary words. We were introduced to two young Indian women, one of whom is I believe she's a photographer and a model. She just like works. She does both.
I thought she said designer. I missed what. Yeah.
The fashion show scene or whatever is like fashion. Just a parody of what a fashion show looks like or what a photo shoot looks like. It's just like people are wearing outfits, there is techno music playing, and people are being photographed, whatever. That it's Amartya, if I'm not mistaken. And so she like is asked by Marquez to like describe the incident in a lot of like grotesque detail, which is uncool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like I wish we had somebody on who knew more about like how investigators are allowed to, if they are or are not allowed to ask about stuff like this. But Marquez basically like asks her like, can you describe it in detail? And which is like wildly triggering for a young woman who's just like been, raped. And, he's like, I understand she's trying to get the details because that's important to the case or whatever, but like this doesn't seem to be the way you do that, or it doesn't seem like an appropriate way to do that. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not super clear on that. And so they learned that it's like it was a driver, and she was like cornered and all this stuff in the park, and it's like really, really rough to hear. So they're looking into that. One of the things that this is the first hint that this episode might be painting Indian culture with really broad brushstrokes. They say, did you identify anything else about the driver or his car? And she says, patchouli oil. I know the smell. I know it from India, which is like, okay, that's fine. It's not that bad yet, but we're gonna dive a little bit deeper. We're gonna have a guy literally say thank Shiva. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. And there's like just a lot of like, I don't even want to go scene by scene here because it's like really rough, but another example of police doing things that you don't think are like actually effective, the classic lineup scene where they take Amartya and they have her like look at a bunch of men and they're like, tell us which one did it to you. And she's like, that's the guy. And then he like, oh god, he does this thing where he runs up on the
Yeah.
glass and like barks or whatever, and
Yeah.
she's like, he said he would kill me if I ever told on him. And it's like,
Yeah.
lineups don't work. They don't do lineups in the police. It doesn't make any sense. You could, again, speaking of last episode, memories when you're traumatized get really hazy and blurry. This is not an effective way to figure out somebody's identity. It's like, we're gonna put a bunch of like dangerous people in a room together and have them stand with a sign. Or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that and like just the way that the episode depicts, you know, who are the kind of men who rape women? Well, it's guys like this guy who are like not human, basically. He's like
Yeah.
a sort of snarling, you know, monster. And I wonder how productive that is, because I think it like makes it really easy to abstract the problem or to like imagine it as looking a particular way, when in reality, you know, the vast majority of those things happen in intimate relationships or with people that people already know. And, you know, so yeah, it's just for a lot of reasons, it was not good, I don't think.
That episode does loop back around to literally addressing that. You know, the person who killed her is her father, but like the honor stuff doesn't tie back into like her being raped. I feel so uncomfortable talking about this, y'all. I feel like I am just incapable. So it's really tough to get around. But they do the lineup stuff. There's all that stuff with the really heavy hand. Justin, you've been a little bit quiet. What are you feeling here?
At this point in the episode, I was kind of hoping it would go in a different direction. Like how I mentioned in the last episode that they don't have the structure of like a whodunit mystery where you give you clues and you figure it out at the end. I was hoping that they have solved the case early on, and now here's what I want the episode to be about. So they've used the structure of New Amsterdam, interspersing a story from John's past with the case happening in the present. And in this one, in the past, John's learning a lesson that when his love interest in the past survives a rape from Durst, he realized that he treated her wrong afterwards, and that he should have listened to her, and that he should have listened to what she wanted. And instead, he goes out and fights a duel with the guy and kills them, and can no longer talk to this woman because it wasn't exact. I forget, but like it would have been dangerous for them because he had like killed a guy. I wanted the episode from that point to be like John learning that he in the present he still didn't quite learn that lesson, that he shouldn't have that he should have respected Amartia's wishes more, and like respected what she wanted. And I didn't want him to learn that from her dying and getting killed because of it.
Right.
They had the character say like what she wanted, and then they literally silenced her. They like literally took her power away and killed her. It would have been nicer for her to be like active in even if the episode is about like John and John growing. It would have been nice to have her like actively teach John about that.
Yeah, because I was shocked that they killed her, because it's like, wait, isn't this the whole? What about the last episode where he like developed this relationship with the veteran guy and learned something and redeemed himself? And instead in this one, it's like, nah, she's dead and all her family members are here, but they're the characters who we're telling you are wrong, and we're just going to keep showing you how wrong they are, and like keep putting up these stereotypes and just like people that aren't representative of who we claim they are, and it's like, okay guys, this is silly what you're doing right now. And I think
And here's one where I think I was just giving the show too much credit. Also, I don't think the show is drawing the connection between John in the past and John in the present, both not respecting what the survivor wants. I think it's more saying like in the past his mistake was like doubting the victim and not like being there emotionally for her and leaving her, and in the present his mistake was maybe like not being a good enough cop and not getting like solid enough evidence and letting the guy out. Or it doesn't really seem to be John's fault for in the presence.
True.
In the present when he is kind of.
Yeah,
He didn't. She told him if this will be bad if I do this, and he and Marquez pressured her anyway, and she was right about her own situation, and they should have believed her. Also, it sucks that that they framed that as her situation.
Yeah,
that the dad would kill her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about just jump straight to the kind of climactic moment of both plots, because there's this sequence where they're intercutting. So like you were saying, Johnny Amsterdam's mistake in the past, you were saying it's him doubting her, but I think he believes her, right? It's just that he buys into the patriarchal structure that says if this happens to a woman, she has no honor, or that's the title of the episode, Honor.
You need to get the honor back by killing the man.
Right. And
no matter what the consequences to the survivor is from doing that.
Right. And so I was curious about this sequence at the end of the episode where we're cutting back and forth between John is dueling with the guy in the past and chooses, after getting shot and losing the duel, to kill the guy. And we're cutting between that and him interrogating the father in the present, and the father confessing to murdering his daughter for the sake of reclaiming or preserving her honor or whatever. So is the implication that there is supposed to be a connection between John in the past and the father in the present?
Yeah.
That's what was going on there?
I would have really, really liked this, even though it's a little cliche. It was dramatic, and it would have been maybe even like entertaining or fun and like thematically comparison if the themes weren't bad. I would have really liked this. I think it's saying that John's view of honor in the past was bad because he took himself away from Martha was
Amartya.
He took him. Oh no, I mean the woman in the past.
I think it was Martha.
Okay. Well, she didn't want to lose him, but she lost him because he killed someone, and he only did that to satisfy like his own honor instead of what she actually wanted. And it's sort of similar to, but like maybe a different version of honor in the present, of the father killing the daughter to preserve like his own or his family's honor. And also like the comparison of like dueling this man with pistols to being like dueling this suspect while interrogating him.
Yeah, that's just like a literal parallel that's filmed back and forth, shot back and forth.
And they also said like the father confessed because he wanted other families to know about it, and that's the point of an honor killing. I think that's something they said in the episode.
Yeah, I guess in this conversation, that parallel makes more sense to me. I think when I was watching, there was a lot of cutting between images of the father and images of the guy he was dueling in the past. And so I was like, well, hold on. What are we trying to connect these guys? Because that...
Oh, yeah. I would have connected John with the father because they both killed someone for honor.
Right.
Not the other guy, not Durst.
Right. But yeah.
Just to get us to all of those points, the turning point of this episode is that the news posts about Amartya's incident and like reveals her name, which is like, ding number 3 or whatever, wildly irresponsible, and most like reputable news institutions would not do that. It just seems like an irresponsible and dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I think they said it was like a fashion blog or something like someone that would have been irresponsible. They suggested.
Yeah, but like then the news reported on that, which like you guys didn't have to. I watched the newsroom. If if Perez Hilton would have done stuff like this, right? 2007, that tracks.
Yeah.
But then for Fox 25 or something to do it, it's like, wow, really? And she says that. She's like, wow, my life feels like it's ruined because the news decided it was okay to post my name after this whole thing. Gosh, yeah, it's just a lot. And she tells about her immigrant story. This is interesting. I found a review of this episode from 2008 when it aired on IGN. And what's funny is they do point out all of the plot holes. They do not refer to race literally ever at all in this review,
What?
which is fascinating.
Oh.
They don't even reference the Indian stuff in the slightest. Which just shows what our priorities are these days. They're like, oh, why doesn't the guy how is he able to rape so many times and he gets out on bond? How does that make any sense? And it's like, dog, the system's corrupt. That answers your question. I'm here to talk about the part where she says patchouli oil, like in my home country of India, or in my religion we believe in reincarnation, or praise Shiva. All these lines that feel like a white person was like, I did my research. It's like, no,
Honor, a word we almost never hear anymore. 36, not in America.
not. Or torture. We only do that to guilty people. Amazing.
Whoa, what? Who said that?
Isn't it John Amsterdam says that?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, that's either in this episode or the previous one. I think I have it written in my notes somewhere. But
In the previous episode, the Santori, I think, talks about being in Gulf War I, the good Gulf War.
Yep. No,
Oh,
this
yeah,
isn't. This is
yeah.
towards the end of this one. It's when he's talking to the dad. The dad says, "Why do you ask me here for torture?" And then Amsterdam says, "We only do that for guilty people." Which, holy shit, New Amsterdam.
Wow.
That's a
Wow,
big.
wow,
That's a
wow,
big
wow.
L. That's a big L, guys.
Wow.
I love 2008. It's my favorite year.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yikes.
So there's there's just a lot of uncool stuff. But he eventually finds out that her father found out that she's assaulted and didn't want it to get out. He killed his daughter. We don't really deal with the ramifications of that because there's 5 minutes left in the episode when we realize that.
I totally forgot he killed a different daughter in India, and that's why they moved to the United States.
Yep.
And I guess they just didn't check, even though it was in the newspaper. Or something.
Yeah, in the
Whatever.
Bangalore Times. What?
Yeah. And
Remember
also and the other daughter, the last daughter alive, is so nonchalant about the whole thing. She doesn't come to the cops. I don't know.
She's dating an American guy.
She told the dad or was an accomplice somehow, I thought.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but that tracks with what they've showed us.
In the episode, yeah.
Did we meet the dad before he was brought in?
No.
At any point?
Okay, yeah, in the third episode we did meet the other guy halfway through. I don't think the dad showed up until the last act.
This
This was a fucking Scooby-Doo ass fucking
You could not have
They
guessed
did
it.
mention that she had. They mentioned that she had a dad.
Yeah.
Okay. So we should have been thinking about it as an option.
I felt this was fair in terms of storytelling. If they're not going to make it a whodunit, I think they mentioned it early enough for him to be there.
All right.
Other than this, the first 3 episodes, the murderer has always been the character who shows up 40% through the episode and then is mostly not in other scenes. So I like that they changed the structure a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want it to be another murder at all.
Yeah.
After they solved it.
Going through notes. Jackson Heights, aka Little India,
Mhm.
love that. Love the dueling glove. Love the part where here's what I thought about the dueling scene. So in the past, Amsterdam slaps the guy. First, he tries going to the police, and they try to make this parallel of look how unfair the policing system was back in the day. You went to the constable and you said, this guy's a piece of shit. I know he is for sure. And they're like, yeah, are you? And you're like, here's all my money. And they're like, I guess he's a piece of shit. And then the literal guy they're talking about, it's here's a bigger bag of money. And they go, he's innocent.
They didn't check that. They literally just had a bigger bag. He didn't even count the
He
money.
could have had one coin in it.
Also, I think they had dollar bills in the early 1800s.
It's just visually fun for them to be we did coins on the table. I think.
I
That's
know,
what
but
they're
this looks like it's fucking Robin Hood or something.
Yeah.
It's what are we doing, guys? We have a mint. We're printing the central currency. I mean, there are coins too, so maybe this just it was his piggy bank or something. Anyway, stupid.
So he's like, I guess the constable doesn't work. Also, again, as if like the modern day police, not to say that they all work like that. I know, guys, don't get mad at me, but like a lot of police is like there's money changing hands, like it's not too conspiracy theory of me. Anyways, he challenges Durst to a duel, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is how Amsterdam dies the first time, or not the first time, but he dies in the past, and then he reincarnates and goes like, wow, I guess everyone there sucked. I'm leaving. But no, he loses. Then goes, I'm actually not dead. No, don't feel like being dead. Gets up, shoots the guy, and then it's like, I guess I win.
My turn.
And now, yeah, my turn to win the duel, which is very silly. And then it's this very parentalist moment too when he's leaving the house and the woman is like, but what will I do without you? And he's like, do what every woman wishes they could do. Have kids. Have a bunch of kids. Get married. Get a big house. And then you'll be happy. And that's what I want for you. God. I can't even dig into that. And then, yeah, in the present, we learn that the latest sister has an American white, as he says, Jewish boyfriend who says that her family is still living in the Middle Ages, which, Jesus Christ almighty. And then that's like what's causing their issues now. And Amsterdam just like confronts her sister in her jewelry shop or whatever, and it's like really rude to her, which is whatever. And he confronts the dad, and he's really rude to him, and then he makes the torture comment. And then the guy says, I pray to Shiva, and then it's like really bad. And that's it. And then the Decemberist plays and we go home.
It's our second episode with the Decemberist song, by the way.
When talking to John Amsterdam, Amardia mentions that her name means immortal.
Oh!
He's like, ooh, my next name. That's fun.
Also, like, I wonder if she's gonna die now.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Even funnier. Gosh. There is a Sarah plot in this episode, by the way. In that last episode, the final shot is she's like, Amsterdam, we've been having so much fun where I've been like sensually touching you while working on you.
Oh my gosh.
Here's my husband.
Here's my husband. Nice to meet you. Oh my God, she has a
and
husband.
They resolve it so quickly. It's so
Get rid
stupid.
of all the tension.
So stupid because the first scene he's talking to, what's his son's name? Oscar? Omar. He's talking to Omar in that first scene, and he's like, Omar, it sucks. She's married. This is terrible. Ah, boy, but, marriage is hard sometimes, I guess. Cut to, hey, honey, I know our marriage is really hard. And listen, I get it. The whole thing about our marriage, but will you just let me talk? Yeah, I'm just trying to talk about how we're not having a great marriage right now. Anyway, I'll see you later. And then the next scene, hey, you're not wearing your ring. Yeah, we're having marriage trouble. Oh, separated? Yeah, we're totally separated. Okay, let's stop talking about that. Like, why did you introduce this? It's gonna be for what you said earlier, Justin, which is like, oh no, the husband is here. We're gonna have to fight.
No, just the husband sucks. That's it.
So stupid.
It's fantastic. What do you mean?
How do you know I like my coffee black one sugar?
That's how I drink it.
Looking at all of your details, he's looking at. He saw you on a camera.
Super creepy. Super not handled at all.
I had this sense of a female presence.
Right. It's so
okay,
I'm so not into them together in any possible way.
Ladies, this ain't it. Gentlemen, this ain't it. Non-binaries, this is not it.
It's like, it's obvious they're not going to get it. He's going to get there with... And also, like, he was talking to Marquez, like, a minute before he had his heart attack. Also, like...
Bing bong.
Like, it's obviously...
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to do that.
I wonder... The IGN review also posits that maybe at this point they knew they got 8 episodes, and so they're rushing the Sarah plot so they can make an ending in 8 episodes.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's true.
Okay, if this were Drive 2007, they would go with the very first immediate plot twist, like how when the brothers see in Drive, there's these brothers, they see that their dad's lawyer signed a thing that put them into the deadly race, and they're like, oh my god, my dad did it, and it turns out they would have done with the obvious plot twist of it's the dad's lawyer. I think if this were this show, they would definitely go with the one obvious plot twist of like, it's not the one woman you think it is, it's the other obvious woman. maybe this show is cool enough to have like 2 plot twists and have it be like a How I Met Your Mother who was like, oh, I was actually an extra in the scene.
But it can't even be but it can't even really be How I Met Your Mother because
it's gonna be Marcus though.
Yeah, there's like 2 women with lines in this show. It's Marquez and it's Sarah, and so like, okay, guess which one it is? Not Sarah. Bing bong.
I got some stray things that I did like in this episode.
Tell me about them, please.
I liked getting to see Marcus. I've written her name down. Marcus and Umar interact. I liked seeing more of the cast interact.
Yeah.
Marcus is like, he actually doesn't care if he gets killed. Umar says, "Oh, he cares, believe me, because he wants to get killed." It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I continue to love the stupid, weird, different haircuts and facial hair they give Nikolai in the past. I liked his long hair and sideburns.
He makes it all look good.
And there was a.
No.
There was also the first time we go to the past. There's a match cut from an angle of the ground to an angle of the ground at the same angle, but the different time of day, and maybe it was different ground. I thought that was like a very effective way of time traveling. And also, I wrote down, "Yes, girl, give us dirt." I liked that shot of dirt. I don't think I have anything else that I wrote down that I liked.
Magic. Oof, brutal. Anything else?
Your favorite thing was
dirt look. She says, "I don't believe in true love," and immediately kisses him when he's only there for true love. That was kind of fun. Knows how to ride They established that he knows how to ride a horse, and then he charters a horse carriage in the presence. That was the stupid John Amsterdam use of immortal skills that I want out of New Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
It was extra, but it was like the right amount of extra. I thought. I liked that she actually liked that. It was stupid.
I love how incessantly he tells everybody that he's immortal. Like when they're going by the NYU dorms and he's like, "Hey, these used to be horse stables, back when I was living here back in the day." She's like, "Oh yeah, he saw this in the day." He's like, "Yeah, totally. I'm super old or whatever."
Hey, okay. Fun. I missed that I thought until the 3rd episode he was saying like ambiguous things that could be true if he wasn't immortal. No. And then in like the 3rd episode he was like, "Yeah, I went to King's College in
he said
got
I
renamed
taught
in like
history
16
in King's College, yeah.
I guess I thought it should have been even more fun in the first couple of episodes because I didn't understand what the bit was.
Yeah. I like that. When you live long enough, you realize that if you tell people that you're immortal, they'll think you're doing a bit that's not funny and they'll just be sick of it. I think that's great.
Do you think New Amsterdam 2008 inspired Pokemon Game Freak to base the Unova region off of Manhattan?
Say way more about that.
Because Pokemon Black and White came out a couple years later.
Yep.
This would have been about in the process of development when they were thinking about where to set it, I think.
Yep. And famously, there was no other media set in or about New York City at all at this time.
Well, and it was a very popular show in Japan.
Oh.
Huh?
Wait, I'm sorry?
No! Although, I think they did consult with, like, Pokemon America a bit. Like, they got one American to design a Pokemon for the first time, and they got he made everyone's favorite Pokemon, Vanillux.
Yeah, you're right. You're now talking about Pokemon Gen 5. Gotcha. I thought you meant that the New Amsterdam people hired somebody to make a Pokemon for New Amsterdam. We brought the energy back, folks. We brought the beginning of this podcast energy right back.
John Amsterdam.
I got Pikachu.
No, that's what the Pokemon said. He's John Amsterdam, so he says his name.
John Amsterdam. Did Marquez call John a space? Go ahead, Justin.
I like how he numbers his dogs. Episode 1 has a bunch. They keep filming shots at these like 20-degree angles for no reason, and it's because it's New Amsterdam and it's Dutch angles.
I made that joke last week. You can't make it. Oh, you haven't heard last week's episode though. You know what? I'll let you make it.
I also realized that this show is just a Tumblr or like Reddit R writing prompts Soulmates AU.
Ooh, it is. It's got that vibe. Yeah.
They want you to write your fan fiction about like, what if you were an immortal according to the New Amsterdam rules? How would you meet your true love? Uh, Show could have been cool if it was like made it to, like season 2 or 3, and like the other cop Santori was the character, and Marquez, and like there was maybe another police officer, and we got like about 50% more main characters that you get by that point in the show. That's kind of what the show feels like it needs.
I forgot. I keep forgetting to mention Santori. He's very funny. He loves basic stuff.
Wait, he's like the older guy cop?
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who like always says the wrong thing, and then John is smart and knows the real thing.
I don't like that guy.
He doesn't. I don't think he has much of a characterization at all.
Neither does
And
Marquez,
there would be like
though.
one episode. There would be like an episode focused on him, and then we would learn like he does like jazz saxophone, and it's relevant. And
his
I
first
just
wife
quoting
died in a
Parks. This is
tragic
just
way,
Parks and
and he's
Recreation.
got a great soul or whatever.
Oh, I want
I just
that.
invented Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think Nikolai is very good casting. I think the way he like jumps between like a kind of southern accent and like kind of Syrian American, and occasionally slips some words in like a Danish sounding. It really makes him sound like he's 400 years old. It sounds very cool. It sells it really well. And I really like the show's optimism that I guess part of it is that he got saved because he saved a woman, but I like that they're thinking that if you were alive for 400 years, you would end up like trying to be a decent person. And use those skills to like respect people more than other people would in your time period. Okay, here's my fan fiction idea. So I wrote this before episode 3, so I kind of wrote it about I forgot the doctor's name, but it could be also applied like he realizes the doctor isn't so John Amsterdam starts to get a feeling that he starts to have like a bit of conflict with the doctor, and he's like, wait, are we supposed to be soulmates or not? And he realizes, he walks past the other woman and recognizes her from the security camera footage at the subway ride, and realizes that they like live next door to each other or something, and there's like some other connection. So he's like, wait, this is what fate is? And like starts talking to her and kind of has a connection with her, and is like stalking her, and like sees her get into like a murder conflict, and he like tries to save her, but he fails, and she gets like shot. But she comes back because she's also immortal through the same immortality spell. And so John realizes like, oh, wait, I know, I have the same situation. You don't have to cover this up. This must be proof we're the ones who are supposed to get together, and this is why we can finally make it and grow old. And she's like, what? I don't want to do that. I'm fucking immortal. This is great.
Get away from me, loser.
And like actually have like a thematic conflict with John and everyone in his life saying immortality is bad. Like have someone with a different perspective. That's what I want out of New Amsterdam.
Magellan, Teen Vogue recently said that you're America's next top goblin. Can you finish it and tell us what we're watching next week on New ChatzKidz?
What the hell? I could not process all of the words you just said, but I guess if you're listening to a podcast, you can do 50 seconds rewind.
Sure, I can do that. Let me just find. So next time, it's our penultimate episode of New ChatzKidz already, unfortunately. We are watching episodes 5 and 6, Keep the Change and Legacy. First off, episode 5, Keep the Change. John and Eva investigate the death of a homeless man whose best friend believes that his overdose was actually a homicide. They uncover a mysterious connection between the new homeless shelter and an expensive guitar, a Gibson L00, once belonging to Robert Johnson. The dead homeless man kept in his locker. Meanwhile, John remembers when he struggled with addictions and entered a 12-step program back in 1964 after passing out drunk one too many times and ending up in the psych ward. Also, Sarah begins to believe that John is hiding a secret from her.
He is.
He's not. Oh, he is? Okay.
He's hiding several secrets from her.
Yeah, hundreds and thousands of secrets.
I bet she better find out by the end of this episode. We only got 8 episodes.
She will not.
Then we have episode 6, Legacy. When police find a bullet-ridden body in an apartment in Chinatown, where Donald Chen leads New York's Tong Gang, John and Eva are called to investigate, and it is revealed that John knows Chen's great-grandfather was a police informant. The deceased young man bears a striking similarity to Roosevelt, a son John lost contact with circa 1912, prompting him to take a personal interest in the case. The search for the killer leads John to the Spores, a violent crime family headed by Roosevelt's descendants. Whoa. That's interesting. Sorry for spoiling that. The discovery makes John question the actions of his past and the reverberating consequences they have on those around him.
Wait, this show is getting cool.
That actually is pretty cool.
But that's also with that. Yeah, did I hear a Chinatown? We know how that's gonna go.
Yep. Yeah.
We know how that's gonna go.
That show actually, that discussion reminded me of one of the things that I remember about watching this or about not watching the show. And this is maybe an indicator of exactly what kind of situation I got going on. I remember watching the trailer where he's like, I've been an alcoholic, but I haven't had a drink in 30,000 days. And I was like really thinking as like a kid, what if I were in this situation? What if I were immortal and in a 12-step program, but had to tell people like exactly how, like, would it be moral to lie? Because you're supposed to be like looking out for each other. And do you, like, if you're lying to people about how long you are, how can they trust you? But if you don't tell the truth, how can you trust you? Because that also sounds unbelievable.
Yeah.
It actually caused me like a moral dilemma to think about that.
An immortal dilemma. Immortal dilemma.
I don't know what I would do. I'm telling you, I haven't figured out what I would do in that situation. That's why I've been thinking about New Amsterdam all this time.
You know what I would do is I would just turn it into a fraction.
Don't you lie. You just lie. Like, you know.
Turn it into a fraction.
He's changing his identity every time you change your identity, knock 10 years off of how long you've been sober.
That sounds right. This phase, this era of my life.
If you're changing your identity anyway, be honest to your lie.
Oh, give me a season 2 where it's still following immortal John Amsterdam, but he goes to a different city and he works with a different partner because he's like, I have to leave.
Chicago.
That's so
new.
That's so good.
Why is he so convinced that
Francisco.
his one true love is going to live in New York City also? Maybe that's his problem.
I don't think he's convinced of that. I think he just lives in New York City and is like, it's a big city with a lot of people in it. And he's like, that's probably where I'll find it. Highest hit ratio.
He had a heart attack. It's got to be someone where he had a heart attack. I thought you were going to it could be. Oh, give me the like season 7 of New Amsterdam where it's in 2400.
Oh.
He still hasn't found her. We could still do it. I mean, Nikolai's out there. He's ready.
Game of Thrones
he's
is done.
Talked about it. He would love to do it.
He has not talked about it. Do not lie to them.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day.
Oh, you and him in the group chat? Sick.
Yeah.
That's what we got. Justin, where can people find you on the internet? Plug your stuff.
I am at Notepad Bridges on Twitter, I guess. I increasingly don't want to use that website anymore, but I'm still on it. I also have a podcast with my friend Magellan.
Yeah.
Called Super Smash Echoes. We are playing, going through games from the character. So, you know, like people on Reddit are like, hey, this is a cool game. I like Majora's Mask. I'm a cool indie person. We're actually playing those games. We're doing them one at a time. I'm going to sell that better because you got a sneak preview of how I'm rewriting the intro. We're doing one game at a time. We're going to do one for every franchise in the series, and sometimes we also do other games that are like echoing the Nintendo.
Echoing.
I should have written that out.
It's okay.
I don't think I sold that very well.
Final cut of it.
I talk about it almost every week at the end of the show, and I still am like rewriting it as I'm saying it.
All right. Here's the pitch.
Yeah.
So you know those games that people on the internet said you should play? We're actually playing them. We're going one franchise at a time through the games represented in Super Smash Brothers.
So normally I'll mention that I'm on Super Smash Echoes, but Justin just talked about it. Alan, you do other shows. You want to tell us about them?
Yeah, I am on the Hunter's Quorum, a podcast with the person who emailed us in part 1. That's 6. The two of us talk about the Monster Hunter monsters and whether or not they're cool or not. They almost always are. Spoiler alert. We've recently recruited Manofsky article from Twitter.com wonderful human being, and huge Monster Hunter fan who's been helping us go through the Monster Hunter boys. And we should have a new episode coming out of that very soon. We're on kind of a weird schedule, but we just put out one. So, check that out. I also am the director of content for the American Marketing Association's Boston chapter, and I run their podcast, Talking Marketing, which even if you're not interested in the marketing stuff, we interview marketing professionals, and I do this funny voice all the time. No. Yeah, we interview marketing professionals about their craft, their work, their passions, and what they like to do outside of their labor. And it's really fun. We're going to put out a new episode in May with a really cool guest. So I don't even host all of those, but I do co-produce all of them. So you get a little bit of Alan in every bite. Chatspod@gmail.com is the email address where you can find all sorts of questions, comments, and concerns that you send to us. You find them, and then you send them to us. Chatspod@gmail.com. @Chatspod on Twitter is where you can find updates on the show. Reddit.com/r/Chatspod is where a friend of the podcast, Nick, is doing Throw Chats Thursdays, where we listen to old Chats episodes and discuss them in the threads. If you like Chats, I would like it if you could rate us on your podcast platform of choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, what have you. Let the algorithms know that you like our pod, our hard work that we do here. Patreon.com/chatspod is where you can throw coins directly at our monitors, and then they will appear in our hands, and we'll go, a bounty of riches. Actually, patreon.com/chatspod is great. $1, $3, and $5 a month get you all sorts of different tiers of goodies. John watches the X-Files.
Picturing the different sizes of coins bags from episode 4.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to be a big coin bag donor, then you're innocent. We got John watching the X-Files. We got us watching movies and talking over movies. We watch pilots. We hang out. People tell us that they like us hanging out. I like it too, because we get to just shoot the shit as friends and not talk about TV for a few minutes a month. And if you're a $5 patron over there, then you have the lucky privilege of getting thanked on every main feed episode of Chats. So for this episode, thank you to Arthur, Jen, Kat, Magellan's mom, Marcus, Mike, Nick and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, Fendon, Six, Stefan, Andrew, and new patron, Lee. Thank you so very much for helping us keep the lights on here at Chatsalon Studios in New Amsterdam, New York. Folks, the way that we end the podcast every week is we do a segment called Chatsums, where we recommend things for the viewer, listener, person to enjoy between episodes of Chats. Justin, you're our esteemed guest. What would you recommend for folks this week?
Not my main one. Has someone said Dracula Daily yet?
No.
Check out Dracula Daily. We're reading Dracula. We're reading the book Dracula, the old one. They email you what happens in that day of the book every day, and you just get a little bit of a book every day, and people on the Tumblr screenshot subreddit talk about it.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea. It's like a fiction, collaborative fiction sort of thing.
The main thing I want to recommend is checking out videos of modded Mario Kart Wii. I have been watching these for a couple, I think coming on years now. And I've come to realize that even though Mario Kart Wii, when I played it, was one of the less good Mario games, because they just kind of messed up, they made the items too strong and you constantly get hit by items. It turns out that if you modify the game and tweak it just a little bit, and also if everybody playing is really good, it's suddenly a very, dynamic and exciting and fun and weird game to watch. I guess the big thing of that is the Rebalanced mod just got its official release, where they modified how every single cart worked and did Kirby Air Ride style. One of them is a Formula 1 car that doesn't drift at all, but you just tap on the stick left and right to have it turn. And there's a couple others that don't accelerate, but they only move by charging up boosts, but you can charge up boosts more and they last longer. And trying to make the game balanced like that, while for competitive people, while also making the carts all play really different. So exciting. Other things that are big are CTGP, the Custom Track Grand Prix, is this big collection of mods. If you're looking for something to get how weird it can get, I would recommend Item Rain or Formula Kart Wii are things to check out. And the biggest channel on YouTube for that is TWD98. I've been watching that guy. And he's just this positive streamer who's tries not to say mean things, and is just keeps high spirits even when the game just makes him lose randomly, and it's just kind of fun and relaxing to watch his stuff.
I love that. I played some modded Mario Kart Wii in college, and it was a buck wild time. There are like tracks that are mazes, where the objective isn't to win, but to just like get through the maze, which I always thought was cool. And like, yeah, all the custom cars. I'm seeing a video of someone playing as Phineas from Phineas and Ferb right now. That's really creative.
Yeah, it's not just custom cars. There's custom tracks. There's dozens of them, and some of them are even good.
Oof. Love it. Thank you, Justin. Magellan, what about you?
I have 2 movies. So I've had COVID for the past few days, which has not been fun physically. But I've been lucky in that my symptoms have been relatively mild in the grand scheme of things, thanks to being vaxxed and boosted, and all that. And I've been able to enjoy some of my time with my roommate of the pod, Charlie. And we watched a couple movies together, some comedy classics that are sure to lift your spirits if you're feeling down and you're looking for something to throw on. Check out Best in Show, the Christopher Guest film. I've been meaning to watch it for forever. Watched it for the first time yesterday, 2 days ago. And I really liked it. It was weird and a little dated in spots, but had a lot of heart to it that I wasn't necessarily expecting it to have. So I really like Best in Show a lot.
How are you the third
And-
podcaster I've listened to this month that's talked about Best in Show? That's incredible.
I've been ready to rewatch that, and especially waiting for Guffman, because I really apparently like folk music, and I've been like thinking like, wait, but is it like way more? I remember it's problematic stuff, but I'm glad to hear it's only like kind of dated and not like nearest to episode 4.
Yeah. Yeah. The main thing that's, well, you can watch it and be like, okay, yeah, that's what's dated. Just, we really thought that people being gay was like funny.
The funniest thing in the world.
And it's not an inherently funny concept to be gay. But
Justin and I are like, what do you mean? Yeah, it is.
So that was the first movie. And then yesterday we watched My Cousin Vinny. Great movie. Oh, so good. So if you haven't seen My Cousin, I mean, come on. You gotta go watch it. It's so good. And you know what's great about My Cousin Vinny is it's a movie that is so particular about legal procedure, but doesn't fetishize legal procedure, because it makes very clear that like the legal procedures could have totally wrongfully convicted these 2 guys. And the only person that was able to get them not convicted was Vinny, who's this like lifetime iconoclast who learned the rules, and his girlfriend Lisa, who helped him learn the rules and is also iconoclastic. And it's a story about people working within systems to fight against the ways that they're cruel and unfair. And it's funny. It's a fish out of water thing. And it's also about like, when you're in a relationship, how do you balance like giving the other person their space and letting them do their thing, but also wanting to help them do their thing and be supportive. And, people get defensive or mad at you. It's just a really, really good movie. I mean, come on. My Cousin Vinny's great.
Come on.
So anyway, Alan, you got a chat?
My chatsam is Tamagotchis. That's right, folks. It's 1997, and you are listening.
Thank God, finally.
Fuck, it must have been a long dream or something.
I'm trying so hard to get back to 1997 my whole life.
The car you're driving with your parents to McDonald's to get the Prince of Egypt toy. NSYNC is playing on Radio Disney, and you just got a brand new Tamagotchi.
I'm thinking about like drinking milk and like
Please tell me
sleeping.
we're going to swing by Blockbuster.
Of course, we're gonna swing at Blockbuster. They have a 2-for-1 deal. You can rent twice.
Thank God.
They got Lego Star Wars in
Not to
stock.
dox
finally,
myself
also.
too hard, but I lived like right next to a Blockbuster. It was sick.
I'm sorry, they don't have Lego Star Wars. It's
Yeah,
1997.
you just took me out of the fiction. With
It's
Lego Star
they got
Wars.
N64. They got N64. They got N64.
Oh,
Rampage 64. Rampage. Oh yeah.
okay. Do they have Mario Party?
Of course they do. Only 3.
Hold on. Let's just check when that came out.
Oh my God.
That came out in 1998.
We were playing Earthbound. Didn't Earthbound come out in
sorry. Mario Party
1999?
came out in 1998. I shouldn't have even mentioned it.
Oof. They have Mario 64.
Thank God. Okay, that's good. That's good. Thanks.
Tamagotchi virtual pets shaped like eggs.
And
They are
1984. I'm
keychains.
totally wrong.
They have like new fancy ones now. I was
Super
not
Smash Bros.
interested.
got
I just
canceled.
on a lark. I was telling Justin earlier. I was playing Danganronpa 2
Hmm.
now that I'm in my post Elden Ring phase, and I went from Danganronpa 2, which has a mini game in the background where you could have a like little character that you can take care of, like a virtual pet. And I was like, I want an actual Tamagotchi. And what I started thinking about, I sound like a This American Life story right now. And what I realized was, it's better than having kids. It's basically all the interesting things about having kids without the hard parts, although there is death. And I did have my first Tamagotchi death recently. But no, the real reason I got it was I've been going for more walks, and I wanted something to bring with me on my walk besides my phone. And I was like, well, this is like something that I can futz with and not have to look at constantly, but like occasionally it'll make a noise and it feels like someone's there. It's just
Does it feel like the Pokemon pedometer that came with Heart Gold and Soul Silver for the Nintendo DS?
It's shaped like that, but it's more eggy, or it's that size, but it's more eggy,
Mm.
and it doesn't have a step tracker. I have the Gen 1 that doesn't have a step. It's fascinating to me that they still make Gen 1s. Like they didn't like phase them out.
Oh,
They're
it's a
like, yeah, you
new-
can still get them. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, so
Huh.
it's got 3 buttons, and you navigate menus, and you feed it, and you play with it, and you play a really bullshit guessing game where it faces left or right, and you go, you're gonna go left, and it never goes left. And you raise it, and it grows up into a big boy, and it's awesome. I'm having a great time with it. It's like such a nice little thing to check in on. And I told you guys also my first death Tamagotchi. My Tamagotchi died this afternoon, and it was devastating. And then I was like, oh wait, this is all fake, and that's why Tamagotchi are better than having kids. Asterisk, asterisk. I don't have kids. Don't listen to me. Oh, man. That's what we got, folks. That's all I have. No more words for you today. But thank you again to Justin from Super Smash Echoes for joining us here. Justin, thank you.
You're welcome.
Whoa. Thank you, Tim.
It's me, Wario. You're welcome.
I was going to say, if you want long, winding discussions where you think if these guys couldn't possibly delve deep into something that's so like base level and shallow, then listen to, not shallow, but just like something that's so simple. Listen to the Super Smash Echoes podcast. Go into the like concept and the physiognomy of Yoshi.
We got pretty far into Mario 3. There's not a lot going on in that game.
Yeah, that might still be one of my favorite episodes. The less going on in the game, the better the podcast is. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Magellan, for being the I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being the Sarah to my John Amsterdam, my eternal love from across the pond.
Who is Sarah? Oh, wait, but she's not gonna get with him.
Shh, don't spoil it. And then thank you to Justin for being the 36 to my John Amsterdam. There's only like 2 characters on the show, and both of them are John Amsterdam. Good night, everyone, and Happy New Year. Wait, good night, everyone.
What?